They said Indiana would stall without Caitlin Clark. Instead, the Fever pressed the gas. The building knew it from the opening possession, the kind of first minute where a team chooses between survival mode and statement mode. Indiana didn't tiptoe into this one. They sprinted. 4 franchise marks tumbled by the final buzzer, and the headline didn't belong to one superstar. It belonged to a group that refused to shrink when the lights got bigger, refused to play small when the story demanded something loud. Everyone turned up expecting a struggle. No Clark on the floor, a high-profile opponent across from them, a national spotlight that can make hands tremble. That's the setting where teams usually trade safe shots, hope the clock moves faster, and pray the whistle is kind. Indiana had other plans. They chose force over fear. They chose pace over patience. And if you want the moment you could feel the whole night bend, it came early. One defensive stand, one instant runout, and one sound the arena makes only when it senses a team is building something on purpose. Pressure games answer a simple question: who sets the rhythm? Indiana answered with Kelsey Mitchell. She didn't float for touches or wait for the ball to find her. She grabbed the reins and drove. A quick rip through to the lane to warn defenders that the rim was not off limits tonight. Then the jumper that makes the backline second-guess every future help. It wasn't just scoring, it was tone. Mitchell's reads were decisive. Pull a big high with a ball screen, snap a skip pass the second a tagger leans, then cut the air with a straight-line drive when the defense is still calculating. That's how you tell an opponent, we're not here to feint, we're here to finish. But that wasn't the whole story. You don't win this kind of night by pretending your missing superstar isn't missing. You win it by manufacturing gravity. That's what Chloe Bibby gave them. Corner certainty, shot-ready hands, and the kind of confidence that punishes the half-second of help a defense thinks it can steal. The difference shows up in the little ways. A guard drives with more purpose because the weak side corner isn't a prayer, it's a plan. A big seals deeper because a helper can't cheat. A closeout turns from casual to panicked because Bibby doesn't need a rhythm dribble to let it fly. Those 2 well-timed threes did more than put numbers on the scoreboard. They told Dallas the corners were expensive tonight. And then there's the spark you can't game plan for, Arie McDonald. Some guards manage tempo like a metronome. Arie plays a drumline. Push when the backline is still walking, pull it out the instant a mismatch is there to be isolated, then slice in again before the defense finishes arguing with itself. The first half flurry mattered because it changed the mood. It said, you're tired of chasing, but you're going to chase anyway. It forced on-the-fly communication from a defense that wanted to guard on its terms. If you could freeze frame the night at any point, you'd see the same thing. McDonald's speed turned long rebounds into foot races and 50-50 balls into fast breaks. And what happened next would make the building breathe different. Aaliyah Boston took over the middle like it belonged to her birthright. Early touches weren't all silk. Some rolled off, some sat on the rim just long enough to smirk. That happens. Great bigs don't grade themselves by first quarter softness. They grade themselves by fourth quarter certainty. When time got short, Boston's seals got deeper, her decisions got faster, and her patience got mean. Catch, shoulder, gather, finish. Then do it again after an offensive board says the possession isn't done until she says it's done. If the defense sent late help, she made them pay with a kickout. If they stayed home, she leaned through the gap like a bulldozer in ballet shoes. Watch closely and you saw the geometry shift. Every honest double she drew became an open heartbeat somewhere else. Depth doesn't show up in warm-ups. It shows up when the script goes sideways and the second unit writes its own chapter. Sydney Colson gave them clean entries and steadied possessions that could have turned ragged. Lexi Hull did the caffeinated things, deflections that shouldn't be possible, a jump of the passing lane that turns into 2 points before anyone can say bad spacing. The bench didn't waste good minutes. They multiplied them. And if you want to measure a locker room without a microphone, look at the way veterans celebrated the young legs. A nod on the sideline, a head tap after a stop, a grin that says the next 5 minutes are ours if we want them. The other side wasn't here to roll over. Paige Bueckers came out with the composure of someone who's been built for big stages since freshman gym crowds became televised events. Mid-range footwork that makes a shot feel inevitable. Patience to hold a defender in her hip pocket just long enough to turn a decent look into a clean one, and the mapping brain of a lead guard who knows where the next help is going to step before the help does. Every time Indiana stretched, she answered. That's good basketball. It's also a test. And Indiana passed it by refusing long droughts, refusing quicksand, refusing the one bad shot that turns into 3. Games like this always collect some static around the whistle. Free throws bunch up on one side, a charge becomes a block by the time it hits a timeline, and the internet builds a courtroom in 90 seconds. Indiana did the only thing that works. They played through it. No hands down on shooters, no lazy slaps 25 feet from the rim, no extended debates with stripes that burn an entire possession for the satisfaction of a theatrical shrug. You could almost see the message on the face of the coach. Control the things we can control, sprint the floor, talk the back line, win the third side actions, and then sprint again. By the time the dust lifted, the scoreboard said what the body language had already told you. Indiana by double digits, and a night that meant more than a mid-season notch. The fun detail, the one that turned a win into a chapter, was simple. 4 different franchise marks fell. Not one hot hand record with an asterisk and a shrug, but 4 distinct achievements. Front-court completeness, individual consistency, instant impact shooting, and accelerated production from a mid-season point guard. That said, Indiana isn't a one-trick team waiting around for one person to fix everything. Records don't fall by accident. They fall because a team builds a system that makes them fall. Take the front court. Boston and Natasha Howard didn't just post double-double-ish nights. They mirrored each other's completeness in a way that overwhelmed the glass and simplified the half court. Howard's work on the boards was a spotlight by itself. Owning space, scrapping inside when a shot caromed far, finding the body early so the ball had no chance to become anyone else's. That kind of night does 2 things you can't chart in a public box score. It destroys the other side's second chances, and it creates your second wave of offense before anyone runs a play. Meanwhile, Boston's steady diet of deep touches and smart kicks turned defensive attention into open threes. That's front-court synergy with teeth. Then there's the consistency drum Kelsey Mitchell kept pounding. Post-all-star stretches can turn scorers into gas tanks on empty. Not her. The repetition of solid nights matters more than an isolated eruption. When the scouting report screams your name and you still torque a defense into mistakes, you're not hot, you're reliable. NBA and WNBA veterans will tell you the same thing. The most dangerous scorers aren't the ones who go nuclear twice a month. They're the ones who show up and manufacture 20 on nights when their first 3 shots hate them. A third mark belonged to Bibby's arrival, the rare story where a depth pickup slides in and begins setting off the smoke alarms in corners that were quiet the week before. Multiple games, multiple long balls, and suddenly the scouting report has to move a defender 2 steps wider to live. That 2-step adjustment breathes life into everything else. Slips to the rim that were congested, seals that were hard become easy, and driving lanes that were narrow become highways. People love the threes because they count for 3. Coaches love them because they change the way everyone else has to defend. The 4th record sat in McDonald's split between creation and control. A race to 150 points and 50 dimes that put her name beside franchise royalty, and a teammate who warps defensive gravity by just crossing half court. That's not a social media flourish. That's a sign of production that scales. She didn't chase numbers. She created them by reading the temperature of the game and acting. That's why teammates used phrases like blessing in disguise in the soft hum of post-game interviews. You can't fake the steadiness she brought to the floor when game plans have to be rewritten on the fly. If you want the tactical story, it's simpler than you think and harder than it looks. Take away first reads. Dallas wants touches in spots that reduce the number of decisions by the time a shot goes up. Indiana clogged those highways. They shrank the nail against straight-line drives, refused to overhelp off the strong side corner, and hunted deflections on the passes that usually feel automatic. That's how you force a team that loves A to B offense to live in A to C to D possessions. More passes mean more choices. More choices mean more chances to make the wrong one. And when the ball finally did sail through the wrong window, there was a fever guard hitting the gas and turning air into 2 points. The post-game language told you everything you needed to know about the room. It wasn't I, it was we, and not the generic version, the specific one. We relied on each other's strengths. We trusted the spacing. We tightened the screws on defense when the whistle got noisy. We kept our heads when the pace nearly got away. That's culture. You don't invent it after a win. You earn it during the grim minutes when shots rim out and the opponent strings together 7-0 in 65 seconds. Nights like this let a team look in the mirror and like what looks back. So what happens when Caitlin Clark returns to this exact ecosystem? Basketball gets easier. Her logo gravity stretches a defense 5 to 8 feet beyond its comfort zone on every trip, which turns Boston's seals from strong to unfair and Mitchell's drives from contested to clean. McDonald's changeup pace becomes a full orchestra because secondary defenders are stapled to shooters. Bibby's corners get one more beat of air. The identical actions run tonight. Pistol, handoff into rescreen, empty corner drag, become even nastier because the tagger isn't allowed to move. That's how a team scales from dangerous to terrifying without changing its identity. The best part? This wasn't a coin flip win. The blueprint is repeatable. It travels. Pace on makes and misses forces the other side to defend in the first 6 seconds, the exact window where most teams want a breather. Multiple effort defense denies the easy stuff and shrinks the margin for error on everything else. Third side actions take a good shot and turn it into the shot you actually want. And every time the opponent tries to get cute with early traps or peel switches, Indiana already has a counter. Ghost the screen and sprint to the corner, slip out of the handoff and hit the short roll, 45 cut the help into embarrassment. Pull any thread and there's another hand waiting at the end of it. There's a temptation to call a night like this a fluke because it's safer. Safer to say the opponent was cold. Safer to say the whistle tilted. Safer to say anything that lets you file the result away as an exception. But exceptions don't produce 4 records in one sitting. Exceptions don't feature a front court that mirrors each other's completeness, a lead guard who sets the thermostat, a shooter who turns corners into hazards, and a speed guard who changes the oxygen level for everyone. Exceptions don't make a coach's voice sound calmer in the last 3 minutes when pressure usually hoarsens it. This was not luck. This was a plan. You could feel that plan in the way Indiana protected its possessions. No lazy entries into the teeth of a set defense. No off-the-dribble hero balls that turn into runouts the other way. Decisions made with intent, with the understanding that every pass has a risk profile and every risk should pay rent. Even the misses had purpose. You could watch a shot roll off and still see 3 bodies crashing to the right spots, so the second chance wasn't hope, it was expected. For Dallas, the film is going to be noisy because they were forced to play a kind of basketball that isn't their preferred diet. That's not a moral judgment, it's just the cost of being dragged to third side actions all night and being asked to track shooters who don't stop moving when the ball leaves their hands. The next meeting will be a chess match. They'll adjust the helpline, send doubles earlier, live with certain threes if it means touching the paint less often. Good. Bring it. That's the part Indiana invited by proving it can win without the gravitational center of its offense. If you're a Fever fan, take this with you. The night wasn't important because of who wasn't playing. It was important because of who was ready. Ready to shoot, ready to make the extra swing, ready to fight for a rebound that used to belong to someone else, ready to carry attention without getting drunk on it. That's how teams turn a season into something with a spine, not a scrapbook of highlights with glue smudges at the edges. And if you're not a Fever fan, respect the work. This is how basketball grows. A team builds layers, the layers hold when the top layer is missing, and the league has to game plan for more than one face. You can't trap a plan. You can't hard hedge a culture. You can't go under a screen on confidence. So here's the truth this game told in plain language. Indiana didn't borrow belief. They built it. They didn't win a coin flip. They executed a roadmap. They didn't replace a superstar. They constructed a platform that makes a superstar even more dangerous when she returns. The records. They're not trophies. They're fingerprints. Proof that this version of the Fever leaves marks. Some nights, the scoreboard shouts. This one did. But the quieter thing mattered more. The way players looked at each other after big plays and bigger stops. The way a bench sounds when everyone knows exactly why the shot went in, not just that it did. The way a coach doesn't need to burn a timeout because the 5 on the floor already rotated to the solution. That's sustainability. That's what wins in February, in July, and when the calendar starts handing out games that end seasons. Indiana didn't survive a superstar absence. They evolved. And that's the part that should make every scout, every coach, and every team on the schedule a little uneasy. When Clark steps back into this, someone is going to be left open. Be honest, who are you helping off? Because the film from tonight says any answer you pick might be the wrong one. If you felt the shift while you watched, you weren't imagining it. Basketball didn't bend around one player for a night. It bent around a team that decided to play with a bigger idea of itself. 4 records fell because 5 players kept making the right choices, over and over, possession after possession, even when the easy thing was to settle. That's the blueprint. That's the message. And that's why the best part of the season might be the part that hasn't even started yet. The Fever didn't just keep the seat warm, they raised the temperature. Now imagine the room when the gravity source returns.